Welcome to the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast, where we aim to help fellow veterinary rehab therapists increase their knowledge and elevate their practice. I'm Megan Kelly.
And I'm Anae Lloyd. Together, we bring you the latest insights, research, and information in the field of veterinary rehabilitation.
This podcast is brought to you by Onlinepethealth, a leading continuing education membership for veterinary rehabilitation therapists. With Onlinepethealth, you will have access to a wide range of online resources to help you stay up to date with the latest techniques, advances, and trends in the industry.
Our podcast features in-depth conversations with leading experts in veterinary rehabilitation. They share their own experiences and knowledge to help you improve your practice. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out in the field, our goal is to provide you with the tools and the insights you need to succeed.
So join us as we explore the exciting world of veterinary rehabilitation and help you take your practice to the next level. Hey Vet Rehabbers, in today's episode I chat with Tanri de Lange from Kinetics Vet Physio in Cape Town, all about her journey into private practice. We dive into some of her biggest challenges, including navigating the ups and downs of earning commission-based income and also tackling impostor syndrome. Plus she shares her exciting plans for launching her own podcast, the Vet Physio Pod. This is an honest conversation about the early days in private practice and the courage it takes to step out on your own. If you're not a member already, please join our amazing online community of vet rehabbers from all over the world. They gather in our Facebook groups. If you haven't joined yet, you can head over to Facebook and request to be part of the action. Our groups include small animal vet rehabbers, equine vet rehabbers, hydro vet rehabbers, and our business vet rehabbers. And that one's for those juggling patient care and running your own practice. We regularly share tips, advice, and host live sessions with experts to support you on your vet rehab journey. Before we head over to my chat, a quick word from our sponsor. Nada first developed her courses at the Colorado State University, where she started the Medical Acupuncture for Veterinarian Certificate program in 1998. In so doing, Dr. Robinson developed a science-based platform for veterinary acupuncture, the first of its kind. Today, Curacao Vet offers a comprehensive curriculum in integrative medicine with a rational, evidence-supported foundation. Courses include medical acupuncture, photomedicine, botanical medicine, medical massage, and integrative rehabilitation. You can discover Curacao Vet at curacao.org. Right, over to my chat with Tanri. Hey Tanri, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi Meg, it's really nice to be here.
For the listeners, won't you tell them a little bit about yourself and how you got into the field of vet rehab?
So I'm Tanri. I studied at Equine in Plettenberg Bay. My field didn't start there though. I studied a Bachelor of Science before that. But currently I am working in Cape Town as a mobile practitioner for Kinetics Veterinary Physiotherapy.
So I actually read somewhere you studied marine biology, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. So I always wanted to be a vet. My path to veterinary didn't work out, so I went for Plan B, which was anything in the science field. At UCT, they were quite limited in their options veterinary related, so I went for marine biology and human biology.
Nice. And so you never did any work in marine biology?
No, I did not. I did consider furthering my studies into physiology, but that's when I came across equilibrium, and then I just, knew that this was the right path.
Yeah, that's what you wanted to do. We actually have a vet rehabber here in Cape Town who does quite a lot of vet physio work actually at the aquarium. So
it's
treating
Lauren.
pain. Yes, Lauren, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So you could tie those two together a little bit.
Yeah, I'm actually possibly in the progress of that. So funny that you mentioned that. And I actually, I just, for a long time, I continued volunteering and that kind of thing at the aquarium just to kind of keep that side of me going, because it's still very much a large area of interest.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so when did you qualify? So how many years ago?
In December last year.
Okay, so you recent. So
very fresh, very new, yeah.
Obviously the shift from being a student to suddenly like having to work, that is quite a big one. And some of us just like fall into it and we're like, okay, we've got this. And so others of us are like, oh my gosh, this is quite overwhelming. How was it for you?
That's quite a loaded question. Um, so I think I adapted pretty well, partly because, I've been a student for a long time. I think my studies ended up being somewhere near 10 years of studies. I'm turning 28 and I started studying when I was 18. So it's been a long road to where I am. Um, so I've had a lot of character building, a lot of, changes in my route, in my path, lots of world traveling. So I've got lots of, experience. Um, but I must say, being a student for that long and then kind of finding my groove as a working woman has been quite interesting. I was kind of thrown to the deep end, and Maricel's been amazing in her support. Um, but I think largely comes from myself in, just telling myself, I've got this, and just taking it day by day initially. I think initially the fact that it was a bit slower in how many patients I had, the caseload was quite small, which actually helped because I could then, really take my time with each client, with each patient.
So won't you explain to us just the setup? So obviously you're working for somebody else now, you don't have your own practice. Just explain exactly how that works.
So I am registered as an employee with myself. So I am an employee of her. My income is commission based. So any clients that I find myself, I earn a slightly higher commission percentage, and then any referrals that happen directly through her, the commission rate is slightly lower. But that's pretty much how it works. I do invoicing and everything through a software that she has set up for us. All my notes and everything is completely independent from her. On the odd occasion, we'll kind of inter-refer between us. If I'm, for example, not available, she can see them, that kind of thing. And she's basically the brains behind the business side of it. Whereas I'm just there earning some more money for the business and myself.
And is that a relief for you that you don't have to handle all the business side of things?
It is. Uh, Also at the same time, it's a bit because I'm a little bit of a control freak. I like kind of having a bit more control over things, that kind of thing. But Maricel is great in the sense that she gives me a lot of freedom. So I can kind of find my own clients, collaborate with people, do these podcasts, that kind of thing. So she does give me a lot of freedom to do and find my own rhythm, essentially.
Yeah. And how many years qualified is Marisol now?
Um, I think it's probably near 7 years.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things that is so daunting when you first qualify, and having interviewed a lot of vet rehabbers that have just qualified, they come out and often they can't find a job. So they have to go on their own. And that's super
Yeah,
daunting because you just like you feel like you need that support. So it must be so nice for you to have somebody with a whole lot more experience that you can call on if you're having a problem with a patient or you're struggling or just maybe just for some validation that you're doing the right thing.
definitely. I think it was very much like that in the beginning, where I just, I needed that little bit of, yes, you're doing this right, or yes, you're on the right track. Just that little bit of boost that, I actually do know what I'm doing. And just a potential fallback in difficult situations that I've never been in before. For example, I had quite a difficult situation that involved a patient that I referred to a vet, orthopedic specialist, and everything went well. And then the patient or the owner was actually quite unhappy with the service that she received from the vet, and it kind of led me feeling as, oh, I made a mistake in sending her to that vet. What do I do now? I kind of used Marisol as a sounding board as what to do next. How should I approach this? What do you suggest I do? So there's been a lot of those kind of situations where I just use her as a quick sounding board just to uh, clarify my thought process.
Yeah, I mean that's so valuable. I mean and also those are like when the imposter moments, right? Like really like shine through. When you have that situation and then when you don't have somebody to like, bounce things off, then you can like literally spiral. I recall many times when I was practicing, when I was by myself, I didn't have any colleagues. Every now and again, I could employ somebody. There was a German vet who did acupuncture, but it was mainly as a locum when I went away. But I didn't really have anyone in the rehab side of things that I could bounce things back on and with. And yes, I can remember just thinking, oh my gosh, what have I done? Or that was the wrong thing. And then you just completely spiral, right? So it's great that you've got someone there to support you. And she's probably been through it already. So she actually had to probably learn on her own, and now she's there to support you and help you, from the experience that she's gained.
100%. I think another part of that is I experienced my first loss of a patient to the Rainbow Bridge. And although, I have my own support system at home that I can kind of rely on and that kind of thing, they don't quite understand fully. Whereas, Marisol and other colleagues have experienced that themselves. And it's a very different experience when you've been working rehabbing a patient for months and unfortunately they don't make it. And just having her, understand that
Yeah.
has been a big part of my learning and growth.
Yeah, it's so important to have a base, even if it's one person, but even to have colleagues that you can bounce these kind of things off. Because the emotions sometimes for us, if we don't sort those out and we don't deal with them, they can come back to bite us at a later stage.
Definitely.
So I'm glad that you have that support base. Let's chat about the practice and how things work. Like, for example, where do you see like most of your patients do you divide it up according to areas or specific types of cases? Does she like to see a certain type of case and you like to see a certain type of case? How does all that get divided?
So when I started, it was a slightly different situation as to how it is now. When I started, it was very much like I was taking on all of her new patients that she, was referring straight to me, just to build up my caseload and just to help me a little bit. And that I was really much like, um, I will drive anywhere. Send me to Notok, send me to Robertson, send me, I'll go. So that was very much how it was in the beginning. And we didn't have, any kind of specific preferences as to what type of dogs or patients we prefer to see. At the moment, it's largely location based. So if there is a client in the City Bowl or Noordhoek or Bishop, slightly further out from the like central area um, of the northern suburbs, then she generally refers to me. I the patients that I get in myself, I have no location, for, you know, no limitation on where.
Hmm.
So I travel the entire Black Cape area and surroundings from Robertson, Swellendam, Hermanus, the entire kind of area.
So one of the things when you start your practice and there's just two of you, things are usually a little bit easier with regards to communication. And then the bigger it grows, the harder the communication between the team happens. So how do you communicate with Marisol now, to when you've got new patients or maybe patients you're treating? Like what is the communication setup that you have?
So we largely communicate over WhatsApp. So we just kind of keep each other in the loop on occasion regarding this patient, that patient. She doesn't have any requirements as to what I have to tell her from a new patient point of view. Um, I will generally just keep her in the loop so that she knows that I'm covering that area as well or seeing that patient. Um, but we have tried to implement this system where we kind of meet each other in person every second week, just so that we can stay on top of things, catch up a little bit, that kind of thing. I actually have a spreadsheet that we put together where I log all my patients, and that's how we calculate my salary at the end of the month. So she has access to that. She can check in there, that kind of thing. Apart from that, we both have access to the same app. So we check in that way as well.
Yeah, so you guys invoice from the same software that is on your devices.
Yes.
Yeah.
And everything goes into one bank account, the business bank account. So we kind of stay in touch that way as well. If, for example, a client used a different reference number or that kind of thing, we communicate over that as well.
Yeah. And is she checking all the payments? So you do the invoicing, but she checks to see any payments, and she deals with all the bad debtors and things like that.
So she hands them off to me if they're my patients.
Okay.
She just informs me that they are, for example, X amount behind on their statements. And I will just be the one to then communicate with them. Or if there's incorrect invoicing numbers, she informs me, and then I communicate with them.
Okay. Okay. So you still got to do some of the hard work, because that's, for me, that was one of the worst things. In the early days when I had my practice, I would do all the invoicing myself. And this was like earlier, when I'm talking like now 2006, 2007. And, those like card machines that are portable, those didn't exist, so we didn't really have, like, it was either cash or they had to EFT. And I remember when I got my first receptionist, I was just so happy that I didn't have to speak money and she could just deal with all of that. So that'll come for you. So you obviously are mobile, both of you. So you don't actually have a brick and mortar practice, but do you have any agreements with any veterinarians where you go to certain practices to treat animals, or is it mainly at people's houses?
So it is largely home visits at the moment. There are certain veterinarians who we kind of have agreements with. So I have an agreement with Swellendam Veterinary Clinic that I can come and consult there whenever I want to. And they refer to me on the occasion that they have a patient. So I do have an agreement there. There are other vets and practices that RSL works with, but we are largely kind of based in a home visit setup.
And you're treating mainly small animals, but you do see some horses. What is the split between the two?
At the moment, I see horses roughly about 80% small animal, 20% equine. Maricel doesn't see equines, it's only me. So any equine patients that go through or arrive at her door, she'll refer on to me. But it is largely a small animal focused at the moment.
Okay, that's quite nice. So that's an area that you could really expand into and completely own in the practice, because she's not going to see any of them. So no competition for the horses.
Yeah, yeah. It's quite a nice thing. She prefers to see small animal, and I like adding equine to my field. So it's quite a nice part of the finding the balance in the practice.
So one of the questions I have, you said that you each do your own notes. How does that work when you go on holiday? So if one of you takes a break, it's always great to have another person, because it means that one of you can take leave. I remember for me, it was really tricky, like, to take leave, and especially if you couldn't find somebody to take over your patients. But then how does that work? Like, if you have to see some of her patients, you have those that need to be seen on a weekly basis. And especially those ones that maybe you've just started treating, they might be paralyzed, and you may be doing 2 treatments a week. How do you guys work that?
We've never really had to experience that. So that's
Okay.
a very good question. I went away for a week in August, but luckily I could plan all my patients around that. There was one patient that she did have to see because it was on a weekly program for 6 weeks, and we didn't want to skip, the owners didn't want to skip either. So she then filled in for me for that patient specifically. I would then just update her over a message, telling her the most important things that she needs to know. And then she would just do the same in a feedback message, knowing that I'm coming back the following week. So she'll just update me on what she did, what she found, etc. And then we'll take it from there. So we actually haven't really had to fill in for each other in a major way.
Yeah. Always good to plan something that happens. If one of you gets sick and ends up in hospital, then to have a succession plan is always good. So maybe something you guys could chat about going forward. And then tell me about, the plans going forward now. I mean, are the two of you, have you got plans sort of that you guys are going to stay together? Maybe go into brick and mortar? Is there any plans for the future?
We did attempt brick and mortar earlier this year. Unfortunately, the practice didn't end up following through. They actually ended up semi-closing down. So we did attempt that. I think that we are, still trying to build up our relationships with the vets, trying to find the ones that we work really well with. So there's nothing specifically in the pipelines that we're working on right now. But who knows? We are open to anything. So
maybe the one that you started was just bad luck, bad timing when you started it. So
yeah, it seemed really, really amazing initially, but it was a lot of big talk and not much happening. So it was a little bit of a disappointment on our end, because we were really, really excited for it, but it didn't end up working out.
what is the biggest challenges that you've had since you started working?
I think dealing with the fluctuation in income has been quite an adjustment for me. Although, being for a student for so long, having an income is really nice. But it's quite the fluctuation in the number of patients I see monthly is quite a variation. So that's quite something difficult to deal with. It's not really consistent and stable yet. So that's been quite tough for me, as well as actually having to build a long-term relationship with clients. Because in my studies, we would kind of be on a clinical placement for maximum 4 weeks, and we would have 4 weeks where we see patients weekly, and that would be it. Whereas now I actually have long-term patients, and I've had to build long-term relationships with them, long-term relationships with the clients. So that's been quite an adaptation as opposed to my studies, as well as the little thing we call imposter syndrome. It's definitely been something that I've battled with on occasion, and I still do.
We all do, just so you know, like no matter how many years you've been qualified. Like I remember, when I first started, I thought like when I know this, or when I've studied this, or when I've done a course in this, then I will feel better. And there's always something. And it's sometimes it's just something so small, and it might not even be like about like what you've done. It might just be like something that somebody says, and they're not meaning to belittle you or be mean to you, whatever. But then you're like, oh my gosh, like, and then you start to think like, do they think that of me? And, there's so many different things. So I think the biggest thing is to recognize it when you feel that way, and then to think of all the positive things about all the things that you do know, and then to have your support structure around you. So I think you're in a good place with that.
I think so. I think I am generally quite a self-aware person, and I do a lot of self-reflection, that kind of thing. Obviously I drop the ball sometimes, and sometimes end up spiraling a little bit, and then I realize actually I just need to take a step back, relax, breathe. My patient's actually doing really well.
Yeah.
And just do that self-validation as opposed to relying on that external validation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things you mentioned is that you're actually able to get your own patients and clients, and then you receive a higher commission on that. What do you actively do marketing wise to get new clients?
So when I started off at Maricel, I decided that I would have my own personal Instagram page, independent of the Kinetics Instagram. I post all my personal, I do my own social media on there, and I just tag Kinetics as a collaborator. So that way, I'm still linked to the company, and the company still gains from my posts. I also just do a lot of my own reaching out to people. So, for example, working at agility events, I'll reach out to the manager or director of the event. Hi there, do you want a physio for the weekend? I'm happy to come and park my gazebo and offer my services for the weekend. That way, I also, get my own patients. I just also a lot of them has been through referrals from my own clients that I've found or come across. There's also, WhatsApp groups where physios from Gauteng or Durban, for example, post on there, hi guys, looking for a physio in this area. And if the area is covered by me, I'll hop on there and say, hello, I'm available. And that's kind of how I do it mostly at the moment.
So I mean, it sounds like you're getting a lot of word of mouth from previous clients, and always great to get referrals from colleagues. And it takes a bit of time to build up those relationships with the vets in the area. So yeah, do you find that your social media and your Instagram is a successful way of getting new clients? I mean, do you know how many clients you get through your Instagram profile?
I think at the moment it's been one or two, so it hasn't been, a very successful way of actually reaching clients and then having them as paying clients. But having, for example, we have a couple of ambassadors. Two of my patients are ambassadors for the company. They, just create awareness about us and what I do. And I think that's largely what the Instagram is targeting at the moment. It's creating a platform as to that I can then say to my clients, go and have a look at this video. I've posted it. You can see the exercises that I'm doing with that dog on there. You can do the same one, that kind of thing. It's a nice, thing that I can refer to. It's not largely successful in gaining clients at the moment, but I'm using it more as a platform to express what we do and educate.
I think it's a clever move of you to create your own one, because you don't really know like where your path is going to take you. So by creating your own Instagram page, if you ever did decide to separate, at least you would have a social media following and you could continue. If you were just using Marizel's one, then obviously, you'd have to start from scratch. So I think it's a great move, clever move.
I actually got the inspiration from other physios in the area who, I knew they were working for a company, but they still had their own personal physio page. So I was like, that's actually a very clever idea.
Yeah, you got to also create your own brand, especially in a partnership like where you're in. Although it's not really a partnership, you're employed, but it is a little bit like a partnership in that, Marisol has set it up such that you have the freedom to be able to get your own clients. So I think it's really great of her to allow you to be able to, spread your wings a little bit and have your own Instagram and build your own clientele. So yeah, it seems like it's working well.
Yes. And on that note, she's actually 100% fine with me creating my own podcast as well. So that's once again where I bring in the really nice freedom that she gives, and just opportunities where I find, I can express myself in ways that she doesn't really need to or want to be a part of.
Yeah. So tell us about your plans for your podcast.
So I've actually been wanting to do a podcast for a while, inspired by you. I've wanted to do something quite unique to the South African rehabilitation community, where I bring in everything rehab and aspects that are beyond the clinic. My podcast name is Vet Physio Pod, Beyond the Clinic. So it opens up the field for discussion around mental health, discussion around behavior, discussion around training, discussion around nutrition, anything kind of vaguely related to us and what we go through as vet physios or rehab practitioners or anything related to pet care.
So is your target market vet physios or pet owners or both?
Both, yeah.
Nice. And so you've launched, right?
No, not yet. On the 16th of August.
Okay.
Sorry, September.
Yeah, 16th September. I think that this our podcast now that we're doing now, I think will air after that. So for those of you listening, in the show notes, we will put the link to Tanri's podcast. Please go and give her a listen and give her some support. She'd really appreciate it.
Thanks, Meg.
Tanri, before we end, having just qualified and getting yourself into the position, firstly, I just want to say, like, well done. Like, you seem to really have it all together, and some people take a little bit longer, and that's okay. But you've got yourself in a great situation, and you've done really, really well. Could you give advice to any new graduates? So say they're going to be some graduates at the end of the year now. What advice would you give to them to get into the industry and to set themselves up so that they're in a good position?
Oh, that's quite a difficult question because there's so much, part of which I will kind of address in my first podcast episode, which will be lessons I've learned in my first year of practice. But I think the biggest thing is don't be too hard on yourself. If you make mistakes, everyone makes mistakes. You definitely do not know everything when you graduate. You start learning once you finish. So don't be hard on yourself and grab every opportunity that you can.
Love it. And yeah, I remember when I qualified as a vet, I remember thinking, because that's one of the problems, is you think when you qualify, and now I know everything, now I'm good. And then when you get there to your first day at your job, you're like, I don't feel like I know everything. Like, I'm gonna fail, or like this is not gonna work, like I'm gonna be the worst vet ever. That's some of the feelings that I had. And then only like if somebody doesn't tell you, like you learn as you go. And you wouldn't really realize that, right? So, I mean, for me, I definitely didn't. And it was probably months into being a vet where, like people were talking and colleagues would say, I learned everything I know from this one vet at this one practice that I worked. And then I was like, oh, wow, like that's okay. It's like okay to learn as you go. So that's really, really great advice. So guys, just know that like, it's such a small amount that you learn at varsity. Everything else is from other colleagues and through practice and through trial and error. And it's always great to have somebody who's close, like a mentor that can help you. So awesome, Tanri. It's been so great chatting with you. Thank you so much for sharing your time. And all the best with your podcast. And I'll be following you and listening. Is it a weekly one? How often are you doing it?
I'm gonna try for every second week. We'll see how it goes.
Awesome. Best of luck.
Thanks so much, Meg. It's been great.
Cheers, Tanri.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I load a new podcast. I'm here every week talking to vet rehab therapists from all over the world about all things vet rehab. A big thanks to our sponsor, Curacao Vet. Their sponsorship allows us to be able to give this podcast to you for free, so please go and check them out at curacao.org. Please also don't forget to bookmark the next Vet Rehab Summit. It's on Saturday the 8th of November in 2025. Come and be a part of the world's largest online veterinary rehabilitation conference created specifically for you, the vet rehabber community. Onlinepethealth members, you get VIP complimentary access to the Vet Rehab Summit. For more information about continuing education for vet rehabbers, you can go to onlinepethealth.com.